So it's official, Michael Bay has produced a movie that has no explosions in it. It's the end of the world. The Purge is written and directed by James DeMonaco and stars Ethan Hawke, Lena Headey, Reese Wakefield, and Edwin Hodge. And in The Purge, America is under this totalitarian government apparently, but crime is at 1% and the economy is at an all-time high, all thanks to supposedly this 12-hour period every year called the Purge, where all crime, including murder, is legal. And this movie focuses on one family called the Sandins. They're a rich family, and they are kind of just gonna pass the night in their home as the purge goes on outside their house. But then one of the kids in the Sandin family lets in someone from outside, and this someone is being hunted by a gang, so they have to survive the night while the gang is like sieging their house. Now, I'll be honest, this is actually the kind of premise that I'm a huge sucker for. Not the actual home invasion thing, but the idea of crime being legal for 12 hours a night every year. Like, for me, it is kind of ridiculous, but I see it as ridiculous in like a Ray Bradbury kind of way. Like, I know it's a nice little sci-fi thing if you don't really think too much about it. And hey, come on, at least it's not like a found footage horror movie anymore. I mean, this has like a tiny budget, but it has like huge stars. You know, we've got Ethan Hawke and Lena Headey in there. But ultimately, The Purge, I think, it was a really good idea, just was not executed well, I think. Now, even if The Purge is a low budget movie with $3 million in its budget, it's a slick looking movie. Like the actual cinematography, it's actually very good, especially when the home invasion starts. The interiors are very well lit, I think, especially in the darkness, and it all feels very suitably claustrophobic, so it's kind of impressive in that regard. However, the low budget really shows with the production design, which is really, really bland because everything just looks kind of standard and stuff. Nothing really looks like it's in the future, or you never really get the sense that this large scale purge thing is happening outside the house. So, because the costumes and the makeup and stuff like that feel kind of cheap, the purge itself does not feel as horrific as it wants to be. And I noticed something when I was rewatching this movie for this review was that this movie takes forever to get started. Like, I think it's past the first hour mark where things actually start to go down, and the entire first hour of this movie is just them trying to build the world, but they don't really build the world correctly because their world building here consists of news reports and like really overt political statements about, oh, is this right, is this wrong. World building, in my opinion, should be involved. Like if you watch something like, let's say, The Lord of the Rings, where you really feel like you're part of these events and stuff. It shouldn't be static like what happens here. They're just kind of spoon feeding you information. Now, there is some tension when the actual home invasion stuff goes on, but a lot of the home invasion stuff feels like a bunch of random encounters. Again, it doesn't feel like there's a flow to anything. It just things just happen. But one of the biggest mistakes of this movie is that it takes itself way too seriously. Again, like I mentioned, the political themes in this movie are just so obvious and like clearly stated. Like again, they're not subtle in any way. And this movie tries to have some big moral moments in there where, characters realize, oh, what are we doing? Why are we fighting back? I thought we were against the purge. Why are we killing these people? But then these moments are so half baked and they come at such random times that, it doesn't feel like there's any dedication to these moments at all because the entire movie, the setup, it doesn't feel like it's going to be about, these moral questions. Then when it introduces these moral questions, they just, it doesn't really follow through. And these characters, my god, these characters keep doing really stupid things, especially like the kids who just can't sit still. Like the son, I kind of understand him a bit more because he's scared and stuff, but the daughter just wanders around the house the entire movie and they never explain why. I mean, why is she doing that? She knows bad stuff is happening outside. And the villain played by Reese Wakefield, he just gloats way too much. He's one of those guys that if he would just shut up and shoot first, he would be doing a lot better than he does in the movie. And again, because this movie takes itself too seriously and the world building is not effective enough, a lot of the dialogue feels very silly. They try to have these big moments again where people are saying grand statements, but they just come off as really, really stupid. Now, one big bright spot though is Ethan Hawke. Ethan Hawke is great in this movie. He's great in a lot of bad movies, but in this movie, he somehow is able to capture the sense of this guy who's conflicted about doing bad things, but he does them anyway, and he's determined to like protect his family, even if morally speaking he doesn't want to kill anybody. Like it's great how he's able to capture that really complex mentality. And Lena Headey is good also. It's just that her character doesn't have a lot to do. Although Lena Headey does have a really nice moment near the end of this movie. And also for Edwin Hodge, who also does not have a lot to do, but when he's on screen, he's easy to root for. However, Reese Wakefield as the villain is just way too over the top. It's almost preposterous. It feels like he was. It feels like his character description was just like over the top villain, and he was trying to play it as much as possible just so he could get a paycheck. The kids are decent. I wouldn't say they're good, but they can't rise above the stupidity of their characters. So yeah. But I would actually say that James DeMonaco is a good director. He really is able to wring a lot of tension from these very simple surroundings. He knows how to move his camera around. He knows how to follow certain characters as they walk through hallways, stuff like that. Very basic stuff, but it is actually, in my opinion, kind of hard to pull off and do correctly. Unfortunately, skill with directing is wasted because he has such difficulty, with these main themes, like he doesn't really know how to present them. This movie ultimately is very unfocused because I feel like James DeMonaco couldn't figure out if he wanted to make more of like a horror movie or an actual kind of sci-fi fable of sorts. So in the end, I'd say The Purge is just an movie. It's like half of a good home invasion movie and half of a good political sci-fi thing, but those two halves don't make a whole at all and just kind of falls flat. However, even if this movie was disappointing, it had a lot of potential I could see, and because it was made in like $3 million and got like 90 million or something, you're sure that you're gonna have more sequels to this. And I will review The Purge Anarchy soon, and we'll see how if that movie was able to build on this. Alright, so that's my review of The Purge. Have you guys seen it? What do you think about it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, whether you agree with me or not, please leave me a comment. Let's have a conversation.